Hello everyone, Kevin here. Today we're going to take a quick dive into the lifestyle photos that we're now including in all of these packages. Anytime someone purchases one of these packages, we're going to have 5 lifestyle photos, of course. We're going to do some horizontal and verticals. In this video, we're going to quickly look over some of the lifestyle photos that you guys have been taking and kind of give you do's and don'ts and kind of review them so everyone's on the same page. First thing you'll notice when looking at these lifestyle photos is we're using a zoom lens or something more like a telephoto lens for all of them. At the bare minimum, you should have a 50 millimeter. The 50 is not going to distort the image at all. It's not going to create a lens distortion because it kind of shoots like the way the eye sees. And anything past a 50 millimeter is going to be adequate. And it's going to sort of compress this space into one image. So we've got the foreground and the background here in one beautiful image. And you're going to need something like an 85 or 135 or a zoom lens like a 70 to 200 or even something like a 24 or 105. You're just going to need anything past that 50 millimeter mark. And a 50 would do something like this. You can get this image out of a 50 millimeter, but we can't use the wide angle lenses for a lot of these photos. Maybe some of the horizontals we can get away with it, but all of these verticals are all shot on some sort of compression zoom lens. The other thing we notice here is we're changing our f-stop for these photos. We're typically bringing the f-stop as low as we can. We're going to want it somewhere like a 3.5 or a 2.8. If it's on a fixed lens, you can get that all the way down to like a 1.4 or 1.2 for the really nicer lenses. And that's going to help us create the low depth of field, and it's going to create the bokeh or the blurriness, which is really important for these photos to give it that artistic appeal. And it's also going to push the eye into this area that's sharp and focused. And it just creates like a natural frame that pushes you into the image, which really just makes it artistic and pretty. So we're going to want a lens where we can get a lower f-stop if possible. On a lot of these images, you'll notice that we have a foreground element, something like this where we're using the door frame here, or even this where we're using the rail. These foreground elements make the image way more dynamic, and it's not like a flat image where everything is sharp. It's creating a part of the image that's sharp and then a background that's blurry, and that's making the photo more dynamic. It makes it more interesting. So you'll see that on a lot of these nicer ones, even on this horizontal here. Good foreground, interesting feature of the house, and then we've got a blurred background here so you can get like a really just an impression of this home. Another thing to avoid is photographing into like a flat space. It's not dynamic. There's no foreground. There's hardly any bokeh on this. We're just kind of photographing a wall with a fan in front of it here. And it just is kind of, it's a flat image. When doing these lifestyle photos, we want to try to avoid photographing things that aren't permanent to the house. So basically, we want to avoid photographing any furniture or anything that's going to leave the house when they move out. Airbnbs can kind of be an exception to this because you're renting the furniture as well. But like in these home shots right here, they don't make for the best lifestyle photos. They're usually just going to be kind of cluttered and weird. So we'd like you to focus on photographing permanent features of the home, stuff like fireplaces, stoves, like anything that interests you, but just like avoid photographing furniture wherever possible. This is kind of like a nice blend of that, where it looks like at first we're photographing furniture here, but really the way I see this is a view shot. So we're looking outside of the home and see that we can open up these doors and just grill right here and have like a nice, awesome space. And we've got a chandelier snuck in there. So this is a cool blend of that. And you can see it's not like a typical space shot. This is a mid-range. There's no floor. We really just stepped in there with this zoom lens and got like a really nice slice of life here. Here's another example of that. I kind of like the bokeh on this one. A little more bokeh would help a lot, but as you can see, we've got this feature here highlighted. And so it looks sharp, and the bokeh here just pushes your eye into it. It'd be nice if it was a little more centered, but by shooting it like this, the photographer actually got more bokeh out of it, and it came across as more dynamic actually. So this is a pretty cool way to highlight just a little feature here. And they also photographed some cool views here of downtown Phoenix. This is kind of a unique one because there's really no bokeh, but there's some good framing going on here. And it's got a lot of attitude. You can kind of see two of the different views here. And there's a natural framing, which kind of just feels cool. It makes us feel kind of unique and it really just makes it pop. One of the things about shooting these foreground shots is it kind of creates a natural frame, which pushes your eye into the image. We tried that here, and we didn't do it enough justice. You've got a little bokeh from this foreground here, but it's really kind of not enough to make it feel dynamic. It feels like we're shooting into a flat wall. I do like the framing that we get here, but there's just not enough dynamic feeling for this to be like a really good lifestyle photo. A better example is this. This is a very highly dynamic image with the foreground, this detail, and then a beautiful colored background. And this is what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of a highly dynamic image here. Here's some awesome views that we highlighted the other week. And this was an amazing capture. We're being pushed into the image with this light foreground here, and it just really highlights this beautiful backyard view. And then this would be like a good shot for an Airbnb, highlighting some of the cooler, neater features of this rental, and a good bokeh on this. Another good use of these lifestyle photos is kind of finding just little simple symmetries. This is a really pretty image. We've got a good framing from this foreground that we've got bokeh'd out, which pushes us into this simple symmetry of the square and the square. And it's kind of, it would be flat if we didn't have the foreground here, but having that with the blur just pushes us right into this texture, which is a really, really nice slice of life here. I like this photo. These can be cool shots. These are squares inside a square. Just make sure to cut off the fat. We don't need all this extra stuff. I would zoom in heavier and just kind of get a slice of life right here. Here's a horizontal from them. This is pretty cool. It's shooting into like almost a flat area, but we've got enough textures and just a hint of blurriness on the front here. And this is a beautiful slice of life. It's also fun to highlight fruit trees. This is just a very, what I think of as like iconic image, just very simple textures from the clouds, a hint of fruit here on the fruit tree. One thing to consider when you're doing these sort of like shots in the yard of like fruit trees or roses is you kind of want to have some sort of element in the house included. When the photographer turned around and got this facing the house, now we've got the house incorporated in the background and a good bokeh blur. This is a pretty photo, great lifestyle, but we still incorporated the house in there, tying it all together, which is preferred to just one of these guys. Here's another example of that. We're using a telephoto lens. I'm assuming this is about a 300 millimeter, but we can see clearly the property has fruit trees that are healthy, and we get the house like as the center focus here, and it kind of ties the whole thing together. And this is kind of the reverse thinking of that, where we're inside the house shooting out into the yard, kind of getting an impression, but still just a simple, pretty, and symmetrical slice of life here with a good bokeh and a good zoom. In fact, some of these are my favorite where they're more abstract. You just like the photographer here just found a really lovely slice here and just captured that. Even though there's no specific amenity here detailed, I still think this is pretty cool. The biggest thing that we want to avoid with these lifestyle photos is we don't want to photograph them as space shots. Rule of thumb is we don't want to see the floor for the most part. They're going to be more zoomed in, more bokeh. This is just like a space shot, f8, and it feels really choked and stuffy. There's no symmetry to it. I would assume this is going to be shot better on a horizontal. We want to try to avoid photographing space shots vertically whenever possible. We've got a horizontal here, which just feels rich and full, and we get the impression that we've got these washer and dryer units in the home. Then we've got this stuffy vertical shot that doesn't highlight it as well. It feels like a cramped space now, where this is wide open and pretty. So this is a good example of when not to use a vertical. If you can show it off horizontally, that's pretty much always preferred. We've got this vertical bathroom here, and it's a space shot where we can see the floor here. This could be a cool lifestyle photo if we just kind of zoomed in more, not used a wide angle, and kind of got a good bokeh on this towel here, just showing off a little slice of life and seeing the tiles here and the texture on them. But this is clearly supposed to be a horizontal shot, showing off the space. And when we look at that horizontal, it really is just this slice here. But when we've got the horizontal, it's wide open, it's pretty, it's luxurious. This is certainly preferred. So watch out, no verticals on a shot that could be horizontal. This is kind of a space shot because I feel like I could walk out of this house, just like that. But it's a very unique angle with a little bit of a bokeh here on the foreground, and we've got a nice chandelier shot here. So it's actually a really interesting angle this photographer found. I think this is a cool photo. This is kind of the same thing. There's no bokeh on this, and there's no clear focus. It's kind of just a space shot of this area, and I don't know what to look at here. I would also suspect that this would make a better horizontal than a vertical, and I would want it more like this, and I would want zoomed in without the space shot, no floor on this. So I would frame it more like this and get like a really good bokeh. So this is in focus, and then this is all blurry. We can't shoot these at f8. We have to lower the f-stop for our lifestyle photos. And real quickly, we'll just recap everything. We're going to be using sort of like a telephoto or a zoom lens for all of these, like at least a 50, something more if you can. We're going to use as low as an f-stop as we can for these photos, setting it all the way down to like 3.5 or 2.8 or 1.4, depending on your lens. And remember to put that f-stop back when you're done shooting these. We're going to try and incorporate a foreground element, like this guy right here, and get sort of like a foreground element and a background element, and it's to create a really dynamic image. We want to avoid photographing really flat images. We want something more like this photo that's dynamic. It shouldn't feel flat. It should have a foreground and a background. We want to make sure that all of the things we're photographing pertain to the property. We don't want to like photograph children's furniture, for instance, or like furniture in general. We want to make sure it's like kind of a permanent fixture of the home. We want to highlight cool and unique features, like if the Airbnb has a pool table, that's going to be a selling point. If it interests you, I say go for it. We want to show off amazing views whenever we get the opportunity. Those are always selling points and really pretty, so we want to capture those. We want to keep an eye out for really simple symmetry and photograph just pretty shapes. Like these guys are artistic and they feel great, and it just gives an added value for these photographs. They're not just typical space shots that you can get anywhere. They're really pretty, symmetrical, and framed photographs, and they feel artistic. If it's going to be a lifestyle photo, we're going to make it distinctly different than a typical space shot where you have the floor and you can feel like you could walk around. Lifestyle photos are always going to be framed a bit different, and it's going to feel something more like this. So just avoid photographing it like you would a space shot. We want to continue avoiding photographing vertical photos that should be horizontal. If it can be shot horizontally, definitely do that. And the final tip is after shooting your lifestyle photos, don't forget to put your f-stop back. You'll notice that quick if you're monitoring your photos as you're taking them. You'll be able to see very fast that you're getting blurry photos. Oh, I need to fix my f-stop. Boost that back up. Get your space shots where they're all in focus. All right, thanks for watching this video, everyone. Have a great week.